The Greenbrier Ghost USA 1897, before true crime podcasts, before DNA, before fingerprints could sing in court, an Appalachian holler birthed a story so eerie that a judge let a ghost take the witness stand. Picture Greenbrier County, West Virginia, winter of 1897. Gulping cold air, skeletal trees rattling like old bones, and snow that muffles sins as quickly as it hides them. In a two-room cabin, a 23-year-old bride named Zona Shue lies dead at the foot of her staircase. Her new husband weeps, neighbors gossip, the coroner shrugs, and the earth swallows the secret beneath January frost. But the earth does not keep it, neither does the coffin. 4 weeks later, Zona's mother, Mary Jane, tells authorities that her daughter returned nightly from the grave to accuse her groom of murder. Impossible. Perhaps, yet the accusations crack open the coffin, summon scalpels, and march a killer into court where jurors must answer a question we still dread. If the dead can speak, are we brave enough to listen? This 8-chapter descent presses through blizzard-lit funerals, candle-lit apparitions, and a trial transcript still filed under State v. Shue 1897, the only American murder case where spectral testimony helped secure conviction. You'll smell coal fires, hear phantom knocks, feel the chill of a snapped cervical vertebra beneath courthouse chandeliers. More than 80000 characters of voice-over terror wait beyond this threshold, ready for you to copy into your favorite AI narrator. And surrender to the night, draw the curtains tight. Winter is coming through the keyhole. A lantern burns on the windowsill. Follow its glow into the Allegheny dusk, where justice sometimes rides the wind on wings no living jury can see. Are you ready? The ghost is waiting. Chapter 1 gone in. Midwinter, snow hides both footprints and intentions. In late October 1896, Greenbrier County's first flurries drift over rolling pasture like down from torn pillows, muffling the clatter of wagon wheels along the Midland Trail. The Heaster farm, a clapboard homestead crouched in frost-bitten orchard rows, receives a stranger one dark afternoon. He is tall, broad-shouldered, eyes quick as black ice currents. His name, he says, is Erasmus Stribling Shue, though locals will come to prefer the nickname Trout. Trout Shue arrives with a blacksmith's hammer hooked to his belt and stories hooked to his smile, tales of forging horseshoes in Virginia. Iron towns, of tussling river catfish bigger than babies, of searching these mountains for something worth staying alive for. Zona Heaster, mending aprons by the hearth, looks up. Sparks leap in the fireplace and in her chest at the same instant. Courtship blooms faster than frost kills asters. Within 6 weeks the pair stand before Reverend Crookshanks in the green-painted church at Meadow Bluff, her cheeks rosy against January wind, his suit pressed but threadbare at elbows, symbol and warning both, neighbors whisper. Shue keeps his past padlocked, speaks little of family, and nothing of 2 earlier wives, one who divorced him for extreme cruelty, one rumored to have died under unexplained illness. Yet Zona, free-spirited and rebellious, relishes this whiff of danger like pepper on stew. A new century wants new kinds of men, she laughs, whirling beneath the church's oil chandelier. Married life settles into rhythm atop Sewell Mountain, where Shue's rented workshop clings to a ridge, like an anvil wedged in clouds. He pounds horseshoes while Zona cooks, sews, hums lullabies to an imagined future child. But anvil clangs sometimes pause, replaced by basement thuds no wife should hear. On market trips, Zona's scarf conceals bruises disguised as woodpile. Accidents, her letters to mother shorten. Mary Jane Heaster, intuition prickling like pine needles, begins praying God keep her safe seen and unseen. January 23, 1897, dawn dribbles pewter light across Allegheny peaks. In the Shue cabin, kitchen coals glow faint beneath ash. Trout strides out early, telling neighbor boys he must shoe a horse at Henry Lovett's farm. Before leaving, he instructs a young errand girl, Anderson Jones's 11-year-old daughter, Martha, to fetch Miss Shue some eggs this morning and hurry. His tone bears iron. Martha trudges uphill through crusted snow, basket rattling. Smoke curls idly from the chimney, not enough for a breakfast fire. She knocks. No answer. Inside, floorboards creak under her boots as she calls Mrs. Shue. Silence thick as wool. On the parlor floor at the base of the narrow staircase, she sees a splash of navy calico. Zona lies on her back, one arm outstretched, other draped across stomach as though posed for a daguerreotype, eyes wide, mouth parted. A shocking hush strangles the room. Even the clock has wound down. Martha drops the basket, eggs shatter. Yo coozing across pine planks like sunrise murdered, she sprints to Uncle James's farm. Alarm spreads downhill faster than meltwater. Dr. George W. Knapp, county coroner and physician, is summoned but snow-blocked. He arrives an hour later on horseback. By then Trout Shue is home, cradling Zona's body, weeping so violently his shoulders convulse. He has washed her face, changed her into a high-necked burgundy dress Zona rarely wore, and tied a silk scarf white. With crimson roses snugly around her throat, Dr. Knapp kneels. But Shue's grief collides with fury each time the coroner nears the neck. Leave her be. She caught the chills. Don't disturb her rest. Knapp, unsettled, performs only cursory examination. Slight lividity, faint bruising he thinks at. The jawline, no blood. Official cause, everlasting faint, a genteel way to blame the heart when it is safer than blaming a husband. The coffin is ordered at dusk. Snow resumes, thick flakes sweeping across the ridge like a burial shroud. In candlelight, Zona's body is laid out at the Heaster farmhouse for wake. Shue fusses, rearranging her position, hourly pillow first one side, then the other, scarf. Tightened once, loosened next, mourners murmur behind gloved hands. Grief does odd things, says one. Guilt does odder, replies another. Mary Jane approaches the coffin. Candle wicks hiss. She kisses her daughter's icy forehead and senses sure as sunrise that the next scarf hides something obscene. Tears freeze before they fall. She raises eyes to Shue, who grips the coffin edge as though it were a ship rail in a gale. Mary Jane whispers a vow. God in heaven, if she cannot speak, you let her soul knock on my door. Behind her, wind moans through apple orchard limbs like a giant lung exhaling unfinished words. Funeral morning, January 25th, dawns brittle blue. Zona's coffin slides into a wagon bound for Sowell Chapel Cemetery 2 miles away. The path is sheer ice. Horses slip, breath plumbing in opaque bursts. At graveside, Reverend Crookshanks recites Job, and though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God. Shue sobs extravagantly, perhaps too loud for mountain etiquette. When the last clod of earth thuds, Mary Jane collects a small white sheet that had lined the coffin. At home she attempts to launder it. Basin water turns crimson, smells metallic. Twice she rinses, stain persists until her third ring when water runs clear. She folds the sheet, eyes narrow, the blood is her voice. Night descends. In the Heaster farmhouse fireplace, logs pop like gunshots. Mary Jane sits upright in rocking chair, fingers clutching Zona's folded sheet. Outside, sleet pecks the shutters, midnight chimes on the mantel clock. Floorboards groan upstairs, footsteps deliberate, weightless. Mary Jane breath stutters. She looks to the staircase, shadows flaring with each hearth flame flicker, and there at the landing Zona stands. But that visitation belongs to Chapter 3. For now, the farmhouse holds its breath. Dr. Knapp mulls his incomplete notes, and somewhere in the night Erasmus Trout Shue tries to sleep beside a hearth that crackles hotter than any forge, unaware justice has already opened her otherworldly eyes. Chapter 2. A coffin tells no lies. There is a cold that seeps through pine boards long after the fire has died, a hush that settles in Appalachian cabins like dust on hymnals. Greenbrier County awakens to that hush the morning after Zona is buried. Chickens cluck softer, wheels creak slower, and even the new river appears to drift beneath a veil of morning fog woven from gossip and dread. The widowmaker's scarf-word travels that Erasmus Strout Shue has taken to pacing his blacksmith shop. Instead of hammering iron, each clang that does ring out beats in odd cadences as though the anvil itself won't keep time with a liar's pulse. Meanwhile, Mary Jane Heaster sits by her hearth turning Zona's coffin sheet in her lap, thumbs tracing the ghost of that stubborn maroon stain no lie could lift. With each pass she whispers a question into the weave. "Child, what did he hide beneath that scarf?" She has a theory. During the wake, mourners recall Shue's obsessive fussing. He first propped Zona's head with pillows, then placed a rolled crescent of cloth behind her neck. He tightened the silk rose-patterned scarf until the knot looked less adornment and more tourniquet. When Reverend Crookshanks mentioned removing it for comfort, Shue's eyes flared. It was her favorite piece. "Leave it be." A thunderous possessiveness that chilled the parlor deeper than January wind. But fabric does not lie. Toward midnight, Mary Jane lifts the scarf from its box. The roses on white silk resemble blood splatter frozen mid-bloom. Holding it by hearth light, she notices one corner stiff, starch-crusted with something darker than dye. She folds it thrice, pressing the stiff spot against her palm. Heat from the fire has warmed the silk, and she imagines the stain pulsing like a silent heartbeat, severed but persistent. The coroner's doubt across town. Dr. George W. Knapp pores over his own doubt. His physician's log stands open on a roll-top desk. Candlelight pools inside like a confession booth. The entry for January 23, 1897 reads, "Death, heart failure, everlasting faint, no external wounds," yet his memory replays the purple. Shading around Zona's jaw, the unnatural rigidity of her neck muscles beneath that high-collar dress, and Shue's sudden rage whenever he inched closer than modesty allowed. Knapp dips quill, hesitates, scratches a tiny question mark beside the diagnosis. The ink blot expands, a dark flower-eating parchment. Footsteps on the stair. Night falls again on the Heaster farmhouse, and with it the hush lifts replaced by the thud-thud of boots on the upstairs hallway. Mary Jane's son, Anderson J.R.B. away. Hauling timber, left no boots behind. Mary Jane grips Zona's scarf and sheet as though fabric could serve as crucifix. The footfalls pause above the front room. Boards creak, weight shifts, then silence. A breath later, knock, knock, knock raps the bedroom door. Hinges do not swing, yet the latch jiggles. Mary Jane squares her shoulders. "In the Lord's name, come," the latch clicks. Cold rushes in, not wind, but something heavier, like river water in January, sluicing through seams of the soul. Fire pops. Sparks leap, illuminating the figure materializing by the rocking chair. Zona stands again, only clearer, skin pale, eyes bright as moonlit creek stones. Tonight she wears the burial dress but no scarf. Around her throat a deep crimson ring blisters against translucent flesh, vertebrae distorted. Her voice spills like far-off church bells heard through snow. "Mama, the scarf hid what he broke." Mary Jane's knees tremble. "Child, speak plain." Zona's head tilts at a sickening angle. "He came home angry. An apple butter jar not cooked right. Through it, struck me. He took both hands and snapped my neck at the third vertebra. Hear it?" She steps closer. Mary Jane swears she hears faint crack, crack echoing inside her own spine. Zona raises ghostly fingers, pointing to the scarf. "He bound it tight so you'd never see." Then, as if a lantern is snuffed, Zona evaporates, leaving air that smells of damp loam pulled from under grave sod. Mary Jane sags, heart-battering ribs. On the table the scarf now hangs limp, not undone. Where the stiff stain lay, fresh crimson beads like dew. The vigil of 4 nights for 3 more nights, the visitation repeats. Second night, Zona appears at bedside, each time recounting details identical. Trout pies, apple butter, a rage flaring strange and sudden. Third night, she urges exhumation. Look at the neck, mama. Fourth night, Zona's form flickers weaker, voice trailing like wind in hollows. Your courage is my breath. Lose it and I fade. When dawn breaks on day 5, Mary Jane taps on Dr. Knapp's office door. At first, the coroner humors polite condolences. When Mary Jane speaks of nightly apparitions, his medical brow furrows. She clutches the scarf, eyes blazing unashamed. Doctor, you failed her once, don't fail. Her bones, she slides folded sheet toward him. The crimson stain weeks old has not darkened to brown like blood should. Knapp's breath catches. He recalls chemistry lectures. Fresh hemoglobin holds bright, old turns ochre, but the stain remains bright as January holly berries. The legal petition cap drafts a petition for exhumation, citing possible anatomical injury previously concealed. It reaches County Prosecutor John Alfred Preston, who rolls cigar between teeth. He is no believer in phantoms, but he does believe in evidence. He also knows Trout Shue's temper. 2 bar scuffles, 1 recorded assault on his first wife. Preston signs the order. Constable George Wellington, accompanied by 4 deputies and Dr. Knapp, visits Shue's shop on February 22nd. Trout wipes blacksmith soot from hands, feigns surprise. Exhumation. Ain't no need, death certificate clear. Preston appears behind the deputies, reading the signed warrant aloud. Shue's jaw tenses. Hammer handle twitches in his grip. He calms, nods. Do what you must. She's in the Lord's hands. Yet as they leave, neighbor Jacob Knoll overhears him mutter, they will never prove it. The second burial ground, February 24, 1897. Clouds sag leaden. Snow flurries swirl like torn feathers at Sowell Chapel Cemetery. Gravediggers pry frozen soil with pickaxes, sparks flying off shale. Villagers gather despite biting wind. Greenbrier loves drama even when frost needles tears 2 cheeks. Shue arrives in black coat, white gloves, out of place silk cravat. He hovers too near the digging, eyes bright, breathing quick. When coffin lid is unsealed, Dr. Knapp orders spectators back. Inside the pine box, Zona's body remains astonishingly preserved by winter chill. Knapp's fingers, numbed despite gloves, unfasten the burgundy dress collar. He cuts stitches, peeling fabric like husk from corn. Gasps rise. The cervical region shows deep bruising, skin mottled plum. He gently palpates vertebrae move, a macabre hinge, broken between C1 and C2. He whispers. Shue lunges, peering into coffin. You devils. Disturbing her rest. Deputies restrain him. Mary Jane, standing firm, murmurs her rest. Begins now. Knapp notes finger-shaped bruises on the throat previously hidden by scarf. He completes autopsy on sight, wind swirling pages of his notebook as if the very air hungers for the record. Arrest warrant news rockets down hills via gossip faster than any telegraph. Preston gathers evidence, prior wives, violent rumors. That evening deputies escort Shue from his forge. He goes quietly but tells blacksmith apprentice Alden Price, they'll regret crossing me, dead women can't testify. Price later repeats the line in court under oath. Shue spends the night in Lewisburg jail. Reports claim cell guards hear him mutter in sleep. That scarf should have buried it deeper. One guard, old Vern Little, swears he hears a woman's voice reply, no cloth conceals the broken. Vern will not repeat that part in court. Some truths cost livelihood. Grand jury on March 9th, grand jury convenes. Dr. Knapp testifies 2 fresh fractures. Mark Radford, undertaker, testifies 2 Shue's demand for scarf tightening. Martha Jones recounts discovering the body, and Mary Jane Heaster, calm as iced over pond, relates Zona's nightly visits. Gavel descends. Erasmus S. Shue indicted for murder in the 1st degree. Defense counsel moves to strike spectral testimony. Judge J. Winchester McWhorter refuses, calling it context to motive. Newspaper headlines flare, ghost throws man in chains. Reporters from Charleston and Richmond descend, scratching pads in steno frenzy. Greenbrier County, once sleepy, becomes stage for justice where the dead raise their frozen hands. Transition to trial. April wind howls through courthouse shutters as jury selection begins. Prosecutor Preston prepares 12 chairs for the living. Somewhere unseen, Zona prepares a 13th. The defendant twirls his mustache, scarf knotting his throat in phantom reflection of the one he placed on hers. Mary Jane sleeps soundly for the first time in a month. She dreams of snow melting under sun, coffins settling, and justice walking barefoot along Sewell mountain ridges, leaving footprints even spring mud cannot swallow. But a courtroom can twist truth like creek currents twist willow roots. And Shue, clever in words, may yet wriggle free unless the ghost herself takes oath on the witness stand. That stage awaits in Chapter 3, Knocks in the Night. For now, exhumation complete, a broken neck speaks louder than any physician's quill. And Greenbrier's winter hush has shattered into a chorus of rumors, rattling chains, and church bells tolling for the quick and the dead alike. Chapter 3, Knocks in the Night. A courthouse can hold only so many secrets before its rafters creak like ship masts in heavy seas. On April 20th, 1897, Greenbrier's two-story brick Temple of Justice stands braced against spring storms, windows rattling as if to warn the 12 jurors that wind itself intends to testify. Inside, the smell is a stew of damp wool, lamp oil, and adrenaline. Reporters sharpen nibs. Spectators crowd the gallery, some clutching pocket Bibles, others pocket flasks, each preparing for a trial, poised to ask whether the dead may knock on the living world's door and demand an answer. Voyeur Dyer and the unseen 13th seat prosecutor John Alfred Preston rises first, surveying farmer faces and mill hands. Have any of you, he asks, formed an opinion on the guilt of Erasmus Shue? Half the hands lift, most lower after muttered explanation. I can set it aside, sir, yet every man in that box knows the rumor. Zona's ghost visited her mother for nights running. Preston chooses jurors anyway, people can disbelieve. Ghosts yet still condemn an ex-car. Defense attorney William R. Hall, neat mustache, silver spectacles, drills with different chisel. Do you believe spirits can speak to the living? Murmurs ripple. Juror Thomas Bostick admits his widow cousin swears she hears her husband's boots nightly, but Bostick himself reckons it's the house settlin'. Hall keeps him. Skeptics are valuable, but so are men acquainted with shadows. They second guess. What they see, 12 seats fill, but Mary Jane Heaster, clutching a prayer book in the aisle, swears she feels a 13th presence light pressure on the plank bench beside her, colder than the room. She whispers, "Hush, child, I'm listening." Opening. Statements. Faith vs. 4 and 6. Preston strides before the jury. Gentlemen, this case is not about hauntings. It is about homicide. We will show injuries hidden by a scarf, a husband's history of cruelty, and a mother's unwavering conviction, whether you call her testimony divine or maternal. The body itself bears witness. Hall follows, voice syrup smooth. The prosecution's star witness is a specter. We ask you to keep your verdict in this world, not the next. He points at Shue dressed in fresh frock coat, hair pomaded. My client loved his wife. Shue nods, eyes glistening on cue, but there is hardness behind the moisture like an anvil under velvet. The ghost knock first witness. Martha Jones, the 11-year-old who discovered the body. She twirls bonnet ribbon as Preston guides her through the scene. The slumped figure, the broken eggs. Hall's cross-examination presses. Child, did you see Mr. Shue strike Mrs. Shue? Martha shakes head. So all you know is a woman died. Alone, the defense hopes to plant seeds of uncertainty, but seeds don't sprout well in cold ground once dug. Second witness, Dr. Knapp. He details the exhumation. Hall leaps. Doctor, is it possible Zona broke her neck falling downstairs? Knapp tilts head. Not with this fracture pattern. The break was clean, transverse, inflicted by external force. Third witness, Mary Jane Heaster. The courtroom stills every rustle, cough, heartbeat tucks itself away. She takes oath, palms flat on King James. Preston begins gently but merry. Jane speaks without prompting, words flowing like creek water breaking ice. She recounts each visitation, midnight knock, candle dying, Zona materializing, the smell of damp loam, the exact phrase "he broke me at the third," hall objects, hearsay from a ghost. Judge J. Winchester McWhorter overrules. Let the jury weigh credibility. Hall approaches, spectacles flashing lamplight. Mrs. Heaster, dreams can feel mighty real. Could these not be dreams? Mary Jane's gaze never wavers. Sir, when my daughter's spirit speaks, frost forms on the window though the stove's red hot. I felt her broken bones with my own hand. She lifts scarf, shows stains still crimson, gasps flutter through gallery like startled sparrows. Hall tries final blow. Do you admit you prayed for her to return? Yes, she answers. Heaven sent her. Hall smirks. Or your imagination did. Mary Jane smiles, a winter sunrise smile hard as ice crystals. You'll find imagination leaves no bruise on the dead. Defense Gambathol calls Jacob. Noel, neighbor, to testify. Shue seemed a loving husband, brought Zona peppermint sugar sticks, read scripture aloud evenings. Preston's cross reveals Jacob heard shouting 2 nights before death, Shue's voice low and mean. Hall introduces letters from Shue's first wife claiming marital bliss. Preston counters with divorce decree citing extreme cruelty and abandonment. The courtroom becomes echo chamber, statements colliding like hammer on anvil. Outside, thunder rumbles. Spring storm lashes windows, gas lamps flicker, almost gutter out. Some say they see silhouettes in the balcony where no one sits, slight female form, head slanted at odd angle. Reporters jot in margins but don't dare print. The midnight knock inside the jailman while Sheriff Jack Nickel testifies about Shue's jailhouse mutterings. Prisoner kept saying, if they don't see it, they can't prove it. Hall laughs, nerves, Sheriff. Preston presses further, any disturbances near Shue's cell. Sheriff hesitates, court whispers. Swirl. Finally he admits, on the first night of incarceration, deputies heard 3 knocks on wall outside Shue's cell at AM. No patrol inside. Hall objects, superstition. Judge sustains, but jury already shifted in seats, eyes wide, rebuttal. Beyond the grave, Preston closes with autopsy photos, grisly but decisive. Bones do not dream, he says, voice quivering under storm thunder. They break under force, and while a ghost may have led us here, solid evidence keeps us. Hall's final argument pleads absence of direct witness. Do not trade common sense for campfire tales. He gestures at Mary Jane. A grieving mother may hear voices. A clap of thunder rattles windows. The judge hammers gavel for order. Somewhere in the gallery, a lantern flame shoots tall, then subsides. Some swear it formed the outline of a hand. Jury deliberation with uninvited gust. 12 men retire. Rain beats roof like drumline. They lay out autopsy photos, scarf, blood-stained sheet. Juror Bostick recounts Mary Jane's testimony. Another snorts. Just then, knock, knock, knock echoes inside the sealed jury room. Men freeze. Thunder. No, the sound came from table center, from the scarf box. None speak. They vote. Verdict after an hour. The foreman returns, eyes pale. Circuit courtroom packed wall to wall. We, the jury, find the defendant, Erasmus S. Shue, guilty of murder in the first degree. Gavel crashes. Shue's face drains 2 corpse. Pallor. Sentence. Life at West Virginia State Penitentiary, Moundsville. No hanging. Jury fears making martyr. As deputies shackle him, Shue snarls at Mary Jane. There'll be another visit yet. She replies, let her come. I'm not afraid. Knocks continueth that evening. Townsfolk claim the old Heaster farmhouse lights flicker thrice the number of knocks heard by jurors. Mary Jane sleeps easy. No footsteps sound upstairs. In her dream Zona smiles, neck perfect, scarf fluttering. Like victory banner at the jail, Shue screams into darkness that something cold grips his throat. Guards find no intruder. but 3 bruises bloom round his neck next morning, faint, finger-shaped, echoes of a precedent. Law journals file state v. Shue as curiosity, spectral testimony admitted. Preachers call it divine justice. Skeptics brand it mountain hysteria. Yet attorneys quietly note the physical evidence matched the ghost's tale, whether apparition or intuition. Truth knocked and someone opened the door. The wind shifts. Spring storms abate, but nights in Greenbrier remain lively with tap, tap, tap on walls older than living memory. Some chalk it to settling beams, others to railroad vibrations. Mary Jane knows better. Zona just checks the lock, she says, in case any more lies try sneaking in. With verdict sealed, Shue's journey now descends behind stone walls of Moundsville, where whispers claim prisoners see a woman in burgundy drifting past cell blocks. Whether vengeance or mercy, she walks the corridors we'll step through in Chapter 4, Second Burial. For now the courthouse empties into rain-washed streets, but one set of footsteps lingers unheard, leaving wet prints that fade before dawn. Chapter 4, Second Burial. A verdict is not an ending. It is a spade striking soil first scoop in the long work of burying a crime. When the gavel dropped on April 23, 1897, Greenbrier County exhaled, certain justice had pinned its man. Yet every fresh grave invites a second burial, the entombment of doubts that keep twitching beneath the coffin lid. While newspapers trumpeted ghost witness jail's husband, fate busied itself arranging follow-up funerals of reputations, hopes, and eventually the living flesh of Erasmus Strout Shue himself. Chain gang to Moundsville deputes marched Shue from the Lewisburg lockup before dawn on May 3rd. Iron cuffs bit his wrists. A 12-man posse ringed the prison wagon for fear of lynch mobs. Greenbrier gossip insisted some farmers planned to string him from a sycamore as the wagon passed, just to see whether Zona's apparition would appear and cheer. Posse Captain Jeb McElroy ordered canvas curtains drawn, but Shue pushed his face between slats, eyes hunting for familiar ridges. He wanted one last look at Sewell Mountain, the forge, the creek, the cabin where scarf knots hid murder. Instead he saw fog and fence posts and once the Heaster orchard blooming ghost white blossoms. The road to West Virginia State Penitentiary at Moundsville twisted 170 miles, 5 jolting days by horse wagon and B&O rail spur at each town stop. Crowds formed like storm fronts. Some hurled rotten apples, others prayer tracts promising salvation. A fishmonger in Charleston slapped a dead trout against the bars. Your kind, he sneered, slime dripping. Shue winced but said nothing. He had begun saving his voice for appeals, for reinvention, for bargaining with a god whose courtroom seemed more flexible than the Greenbrier bench. Moundsville's iron cathedral, the Gothic fortress of Moundsville, loomed carbide black over the Ohio River floodplain. Castle towers, arrow slot windows, 90-foot walls cold enough to leach warmth from daylight. Warden Henry DeMoore led new arrivals past North Walk, where men broke rock 12 hours a day, faces slate dust gray. Each convict's file received a one-line crime summary. Shue's read simply, wife murder, neck guards copied the note onto a tin ID tag strung to his collar like a pet license. Cell 217 in South Hall became his world. 7 feet by 5 feet, 2 buckets water, waste, straw tick with fleas, slit window facing the yard's gallows unused since 1896 but still silhouetted. Like the uppercase letter T each sunset. The first night, Shue lay listening to the penitentiary breathe, distant coughs, clank of leg irons, a guard's boot scrape, then tap, 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 3 light knocks on his cell bars. He sat upright, no one in the corridor. Taps came again from stone wall behind his bunk, echoing C major triad like a tuning fork struck in silence. Prison folklore spoke of phantom taps marking new arrivals bound to die inside. Shue pressed his ear to limestone. Cold bit cartilage, but no further sound. Mary Jane's quiet crusade back in Greenbrier. Mary Jane Heaster began her own second burial, the interment of public fascination. She shunned reporters, refused Circuit Chautauqua invitations to recount the haunting. Instead, she walked 2 miles daily to Sowell Chapel Cemetery, carrying fresh laurel branches. Neighbors found her kneeling by Zona's stone, lips moving, sometimes nodding as if listening to invisible counsel. She also wrote letters to legislators, to the governor, even to President McKinley, pleading that women's testimonies be considered equal to men's without spectral validation. None replied. The country celebrated economic rebound. No politician wanted headlines linking suffrage to. Still, her ink darkened page after page. One night, finishing a missive to the Ladies' Home Journal, she felt the familiar hush and turned. Zona's form glimmered near the hearth, smiling. No bruises, no crooked neck, healing in the hereafter, perhaps. The ghost lifted 2 translucent fingers, then faded. Mary Jane understood. 2 more tasks before rest. Appeals law versus Specturgally 14. Shue's attorney filed habeas corpus in the West Virginia Supreme Court, arguing conviction rested on spectral hearsay contrary to evidence rules. The brief labeled Mary Jane's visions the hysterical imaginings of a grief-struck woman, quoting medical journals that pathologized uterine misperceptions. Mary Jane, reading the motion, laughed a brittle laugh. They still fear the dead, so they blame the womb. The High Court scheduled oral arguments October 9th. Trout Shue arrived shackled, hair cropped prison short, cheeks gone lantern-jawed. Defense painted a portrait of prejudice, rural superstition, salacious press, a coroner cowed by mob fever. Prosecutor Preston countered with autopsy drawings enlarged like anatomical maps of sin, fractured C2 vertebra, finger bruises, no ghost. Testimony entered the record. Preston relied on bones that do not hallucinate. After recess, justices upheld conviction 5-0. Justice Dent's opinion read, while unusual circumstances led investigators to re-examine the decedent. The evidence at trial was physical and compelling. No reversible error found. Shue's shoulders collapsed noticeably as the clerk intoned judgment. A reporter asked for comment. Shue glared. "A ghost brought me here. Maybe a ghost will walk me out." Life in cell 217. Winter blanketed the panhandle. By late November, old steam boilers rattled like consumptive giants. Frost-etched cell bars lace white. Shue petitioned for assignment in the blacksmith shop to serve the state with my trade. Warden Moore refused. Liability. Instead, Shue joined pegline crafting, furniture pegs 600 per day. Splinters bloodied his palms. He licked wounds clean, tasting iron tang of penitence. Nightly the triple knock returned. Always 3, always between 12 o'clock and 12:05. Cellneighbor Jonah Hurley, serving 15 for cattle theft, swore he saw pale hands reach through the stone and tap. Guards dismissed it as night terrors until January 5, 1898, when Officer Lou Transom roved past and heard the taps himself, followed by rattling cough from Shue's bunk. Entering, he found the prisoner convulsing, face blue. Doctors report acute influenza, likely fatal without rest. Shue spent 10 days in infirmary. During fever dreams, he begged unseen visitors, "Loose the scarf, I can't breathe, nurse." Della Birch noted ligature marks on his neck deeper than shackles could cause. Mary Jane's second task, winter thaw 1899, arrived with grave news. Mary Jane's son Anderson JRB fell from a timber wagon, crushed. She buried him beside Zona. During service, she felt Zona's presence again, 2 fingers now raised. Task 1, Anderson's soul guided. Task 2 remained. On April 20, 1900, Mary Jane assembled Greenbrier women at the courthouse steps, petition demanding equal inheritance rights, the manifest injustice evident in Zona's estate passing wholly to Erasmus before his conviction. Judge McWhorter, now gray and stooped, received the document, promised committee review. He died of stroke 3 months later. The panel never formed. Mary Jane accepted failure with grace. Yet that night Zona returned, touched her mother's cheek, smile radiant. Mary Jane realized second task was not legislation. It was letting go of anger. She knelt and forgave Shue aloud. The apparition dissolved like breath on mirror, leaving the room warmer than lamplight. Mary Jane died quietly in February 1916, aged 72. Witnesses claimed a soft floral scent filled the bedroom, though no flowers were present. On her dresser they found the once crimson-stained scarf, now pure white, stain vanished. Some say cloth bleached over years. Others swear miracles carry their own laundry service. Third knock end of Erasmus inside Moundsville, Shue deteriorated. Tuberculosis gnawed lungs. Arthritic fingers cramped permanently, denying peg quota. Fellow inmates shunned him. Nobody likes cell block stories where ghosts pick the locks of the righteous and leave sinners screaming. Night of March 27, 1902, triple knock echoed, louder, guards on 3 tiers heard, cell doors all vibrated. Running to check, they found Shue slumped on bunk, eyes open but sightless, mouth frozen mid-word, Zona. Doctor declared heart failure secondary to TB, age 39. Linen tag on toe read body number 1912. Yes, Shue. Penitentiary protocol offered paupers field burial. No kin claimed him. No minister volunteered eulogy. 2 cemetery workers dug a square near the northeast wall. Storm clouds rolled. Thunder growled. As they dropped the pine coffin, a sudden gust snuffed lanterns, leaving darkness so complete one worker vomited from vertigo. He swore he felt a feminine hand brush his cheek, followed by brief scent of lilacs. Next flash of lightning showed. Coffin settled, earth waiting. They shoveled fast, left marker Kelm March 27, 1912. No visitor ever came. That was Shue's second burial, one for body, one for myth. Yet myths seldom stay put. Greenbrier teenagers soon dared one another to sneak into Moundsville Cemetery, tap coffin lids thrice, and listen for rattling chains. Some returned pale, insisting muffled knocks answered, epilogue to the burial cycle. Mary Jane's forgiveness completed Zona's haunting. After 1900, no one reported the burgundy-dressed specter in Greenbrier except for a visiting journalist in 1921 who claimed a woman with bent neck asked directions to the courthouse. Locals shrugged. Some ghosts are restless only until the right door closes. But the case refused to die. Law textbooks filed a footnote. Spectral evidence admissible when corroborated by physical proof rare. Spiritualist circles hailed the verdict as triumph. Skeptics derided Appalachian credulity, yet both camps agreed on one point. Zona's voice, however, conveyed pointed coroner's scalpel to the truth. And truth, once exhumed, does not slip quietly back into ground. In Sowell Chapel Cemetery, 3 stones stand. Zona, Anderson, JRB. Mary Jane aligned like offertory candles. Each spring lilacs blossom unplanted around the plot. Gardeners tried. Ray sodding once, roots store their gloves with thorns not seen elsewhere. They leave the flowers alone now. Mountain custom says some blooms belong to the dead. The second burial seemed final, but echoes always find fresh timbers to vibrate. In Chapter 5, Courtroom of Haunts, we'll ride those echoes through early 20th century folklore, legislative ripples, and the penitent darkness of Moundsville's haunted halls, pressing deeper toward 80000 characters and the moment a ghost officially entered U.S. legal history books. For tonight, snow melts on Sowell ridges, owl hoots across the hollow, and somewhere a rusty harmonica plays 3 notes up, up, down, saluting a neck that could no longer bow without breaking. Chapter 5, Courtroom of Haunts. Long after a jury files out and the judge hangs up his robe, trials continue in the court of public imagination. In Greenbrier County, the state v. Erasmus Shue verdict became a campfire obsession, relitigated in kitchens, taverns, and pulp magazines. Every retelling summoned its own jury, believers, skeptics, and thrill-seekers who wanted the chill of a true ghost story pressed against their skin like frost. By the first anniversary of Zona's death, her apparition had migrated from whisper to folklore, and folklore, like embers, rekindles itself whenever fresh air finds a crack. 1. The Gospel according to gossip in May 1898. Just weeks after Shue's arrival at Moundsville, the Charleston Daily Mail ran a Sunday supplement titled Bride of the Beyond. When a specter spoke in court, the article dramatized Zona's nightly visits with lines that read more penny dreadful than deposition. It described her floating 3 inches above floorboards, neck angled at a ghastly 45 degrees, and claimed the ghost glowed with cold blue witch fire. None of that appeared in Mary Jane's testimony, but accuracy seldom sells. As well as Shivers, copies sold out. A reprint appeared in Harper's Weekly. British spiritualist papers excerpted it alongside, and ectoplasm photographs. Soon tour wagons rattled up Sewell mountain ruts to view the haunted cabin. One driver hammered a placard, "See where the dead spoke," onto the gatepost. Mary Jane shooed gawkers with a kitchen broom. "The dead speak for justice, not spectacle," she scolded, though even she admitted that each retelling kept Zona's voice alive. 2. Moundsville's Whispering Winge. Inside Moundsville Penitentiary, the story metastasized into nightmare fuel. New inmates received it during initiation. South Hall's got a lady who checks on Trout's bunk, bent neck, roses on her dress. Guards rolled their eyes, but record books logged an uptick in night shift incident reports labeled unexplained. Disturbance. One described soft footsteps on metal catwalk, no prisoner out. Another, filed by turnkey Lou Fitzgerald, read, 3:02 a.m. cell 217 bars tapped thrice. Inmate Shue crying out, "Leave me, Zona," no person visible. Hallways gained nicknames: the bridal aisle, scarf corridor, Zona walk, prison folklore. Claims any inmate who mocked the tale woke with striped bruises across throat, though medical logs attribute them to scuffles or withdrawal tremors. Still, fear is a persuasive warden. South Hall discipline incidents dropped 40% in 1898. No one wanted to meet the Greenbrier bride after lights out. 3. Legal echoes and legislative stonewalls following the Supreme Court's denial. Shue's lawyer petitioned the West Virginia House of Delegates for clemency, branding the conviction an affront to rational evidence. The Judiciary Committee refused to hear it, but the petition sparked debate. Could spectral testimony ever be admissible again? Newspapers demanded anti-ghost clauses. In February 1899, Delegate Jeremiah Boone introduced Bill 114, an act to exclude spiritual manifestations from court proceedings. Opponents argued existing evidentiary rules sufficed. Supporters feared a parade of grieving widows claiming phantom confessions. The bill died in committee. Too many lawmakers secretly thrilled that their state hosted a one-of-a-kind legend. But its filing cemented Zona's place in legislative lore, the ghost who nearly rewrote courtroom rules for vaudeville and the second-hand Spectre. B. 1903, touring vaudeville troupes performed The Greenbrier Ghost, or Love Beyond the Grave. Audiences gasped as an actress draped in muslin hovered on hidden wires claiming, "Ma, he broke me at the third." In St. Louis, a critic snarked, "More comedy than Calamity Ghost's accent, thicker than Appalachian moonshine, yet ticket." Sales proved ridicule couldn't kill curiosity. Mary Jane attended one production by accident while visiting relatives in Roanoke. Mid-show she walked out, face set like mountain granite. They made her entertainment, she whispered later, tears glinting. That night Zona appeared for the last time, smiling, head upright, as if gratitude for all her mother had endured. Mary Jane never saw the ghost again, but she felt warm pressure on her shoulder whenever courage wavered. 5. Academics dissect a haunting. In 1912, Dr. William C. Brooks, professor of psychology at Ohio Wesleyan, published Collective Hallucination, the Greenbrier Case Re-Examined. Brooks proposed Mary Jane's visions were grief-induced hypnagogic episodes, but conceded the coincidental accuracy of the autopsy injuries presents a statistical anomaly. Ghost believers countered with pamphlets quoting Job in the Night, when deep sleep falleth on men, fear came upon me. Brooks' journal article spurred campus debates but failed to dislodge popular belief. Numbers are cold companions beside candlelit thrills. 6. Zona walks into women's suffrage. In West Virginia debated the 19th Amendment ratification in 1920. Suffragists brandished Mary Jane's court testimony as emblem of a woman's voice shaking patriarchal justice. Posters read, "Let her speak, even the dead." Critics grumbled that equating suffrage with spiritualism hurt the cause, but the symbol stuck. When the state finally ratified in March 1920, one newspaper cartoon depicted Zona's ghost handing a ballot to her mother, who slipped it into an urn labeled democracy. 7. Paranormal tourism and Depression-era revival. The Great Depression turned folklore into economic engine. In 1934, the Wapelue Guidebook, West Virginia, a state of mountains, devoted 2 pages to the Greenbrier ghost, recommending travelers visit the Heaster grave sites and the cabin remnants. Local entrepreneur Bud White repurposed his feed. Store into Spectre's stop, serving neck snap apple butter on biscuits. Tour buses nicknamed spook schooners brought city dwellers seeking chills cooler than summer heat. Cash registers clinked, but some townsfolk muttered that monetizing tragedy invited fresh misfortune. Barn fires spiked that year, though investigators blamed lightning. 8. Moundsville's last rattle. 4 decades after Shue's death, the penitentiary still whispered. In 1942, guards found a chalk tally scratched into cell 217E's wall, X1460. Old logs showed that was the exact number of nights Shue served. No inmate occupied the cell since 1905. When the next prisoner moved in, he lasted 1 week before. Demanding transfer, claiming a soft voice recited the Lord's Prayer backward at midnight. Administrators retired the cell, welding its gate. Tour guides today call it the Greenbrier Vault. 9. Law reviews and postmodern precedent. In 1968, Fordham Law Review published Supernatural Evidence and Due Process, a centenary reflection. The piece cited State v. Shue as cautionary footnote, but acknowledged advancements in forensics sowed the re-examination of Zona's corpse to her mother's visions. The article concluded, "The case illustrates how unorthodox intuition can prompt orthodox investigation. Justice, like electricity, may travel by unexpected circuits." That line found its way onto motivational posters, into forensic science labs. 10. Fading footprints, lasting echoes. By the late 20th century, the original cabin had rotted into wildflowers. Only stone footers remained. Local Historical Society installed a bronze plaque. Interred facts and uninterred truth met here. Zona Heaster Shue 1873-1897. Visitors leave silk roses and scarves. On windy nights rangers hear fabric flutter, though no scarves hang. From nowhere comes the wish-wish of silk tightening around unseen skin. 11. Voice over reflection. The second burial. Shue's in the prison yard couldn't silence the haunting. Instead, it freed the story to roam, standing trial in every parlor it entered. Some juries ruled for reason, others for revelation. Yet across 128 years, 2 facts remained stubborn as mountain granite. Zona's neck was broken, and her mother knew without seeing. Whether guided by spectral daughter or honed maternal instinct doesn't change the verdict, only enlarges the mystery of how truth travels from lips sealed by death to ears sealed by doubt. Justice, it seems, sometimes chooses unconventional couriers. Behind us now, like coffins, courtrooms, and cell blocks, ahead waits legacy, how a ghost's testimony shaped faith, law, and commerce. In Chapter 6, Echoes in Greenbrier, we'll chart those ripples through succeeding decades. Scientific skeptics, roadside storytellers, and heirs caught between surnames and shadows, pushing our narrative closer to the 80,000 character horizon. 4. Now night settles over Greenbrier Hollows. Somewhere a screen door slams 3 times, tap, 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 and an old scarf flutters off a coat hook, though windows stay shut. Whether that's wind or witness, we leave to your verdict. Chapter 6, Echoes in Greenbrier. History never stays glued to the decade that birthed it. Once freed, it flutters, landing on new generations like an uninvited moth, dusting them with the same powder of fear and fascination in Greenbrier County. The Greenbrier ghost refused to yellow quietly in scrapbooks. It reinvented itself each time the world acquired a new gadget, a new worry, a new way to package dread. Telegraph, radio, television, internet, every medium became another mouth for Zona's fractured neck to speak through. One, radio static and rose petal stories 193OS 194OS when battery radios crackled into Appalachian parlors, the work's progress. Administration launched a show called Mountain Mysteries Hour. Episode 6, aired October 22, 1937, dramatized Zona's case with a gravel-voiced actor pitching Mary Jane's lines into the microphone like scripture. Families sat transfixed around bakelite sets while thunder Foley boomed and a Foley artist snapped celery to mimic bone. In Lewisburg, a switchboard lit up afterward. Listeners reported hearing 3 taps on their front doors during the broadcast. The phone operator logged 21 calls, each claiming the same pattern: tap, tap, tap. Silence. Skeptics attributed it to wind-rattling porch swings. Still, 4 weeks, mothers bolted doors after dark, and children dared one another to whisper trout Shue into cellar shadows. 2. Post-war science meets a phantom 1,950 seconds by the 1950s America. Trusted Geiger counters and double-blind trials more than mother's intuition. Enter Dr. Rosalind Weaver, folklore ethnographer out of Columbia University, funded by the Rockefeller Foundation to study survival of medieval belief in modern Appalachia. She arrived in Greenbrier in a Willys Jeep piled with reel-to-reel recorders, test tubes for soil samples, and a clinical smile. Weaver interviewed 40 locals, including Zona's aged cousin Iris, who swore the ghost still rattled shutters when storms threatened. Weaver's report concluded, no empirical manifestation recorded, yet the narrative's psychosocial utility remains potent, serves as deterrent to domestic abuse. Newspapers boiled her 60-page paper down to, New York lady says ghost, good for marriage. Yet Weaver's presence stirred dormant embers. She convinced county commissioners to fund a marker at Sowell Chapel Cemetery, the first official recognition that the town's most famous citizen was technically dead and legally vocal. When the bronze plaque arrived in 1956, townsfolk argued its wording for 3 nights. The final text read, in lasting memory of Zona Heaster Shue 1873–1897, whose death led to the only U.S. trial in which a spirit's testimony aided conviction. Note the tactful aided. Even 60 years later, officials hedged bets with semantics. 3. Television turns truth into ratings. 1,970 seconds. Color television beamed into hollows like artificial dawn. In October 1972, CBS's primetime series Unsolved America devoted an episode to the bride who wouldn't rest. Producers paid an out-of-work actor to sleep inside a replica coupe to reenact Shue's cruelty to former wives, filmed soupy flashbacks bathed in red gels, and ended with the host's eyebrow at maximum arch. Did a ghost secure justice? You decide. Millions did decide and wrote letters. CBS forwarded hate mail to Greenbrier's sheriff complaining the show demonized Appalachia. Tourist mail flooded Chamber of Commerce asking for haunted house tours. Chamber President Clyde Dilley. Smelling recession, printed pamphlets. Greenbrier Ghost Trail. Mary Jane's farmhouse, now owned by cousins, featured authentic faint cold spot in the parlor for $1 donation for Highway 60 and the Summer of Scars 1983 and 1983. 60 expansion bulldozed near the original Shoe Forge site. Construction halted twice when workers reported pneumatic hammers cutting out mid-use and compressor hoses kinking into neat 3-loop knots. Foreman Billy Hoyle dismissed ghost sabotage, but the site lost 2 weeks. Eventually rerouted a drainage ditch to avoid unstable shale, though old-timers said the shale stood just fine till bulldozers angered the buried anvil. Local weekly The Mountain Messenger ran headline, Greenbrier Ghost Blocks Highway. West Virginia. Demanded a retraction. The paper instead printed a follow-up editorial calling for a historical park to protect remaining cabin stones. The park never materialized, funds dried up, but legend cemented. Nothing mechanical hums happily where trout hammered lies into steel. 5. The VHS boom and amateur hunters 1990 seconds home video recorders lowered the bar to fame. Teenagers taped night vision escapades in the abandoned orchard, daring the Greenbrier ghost to appear. Most footage showed raccoons, but one 1994 tape captured an unplanned cameo, thudding footsteps, camera whirl, a burgundy blur crossing frame, then 3. Knocks on oak trunk, distinct, deliberate. Static swallowed the rest. The tape became county library legend. Librarians loaned it under reference only, and the VCR machine always froze at the red blur, as though analog tape conspired to censor a neck turned too far. 6. Digital age hashtag. Hashtag Zona speaks 2010 seconds. Smartphones placed HD video in every palm. In 2016, YouTuber HauntRoad77 live streamed from Sowell Chapel at midnight, promising EVP sessions. Thousands watched chat scroll, tap 3 times if you're here, microphone hiss, then 3 knocks. Decibel meters spiked, cheers in chat. Skeptics cried soundboard. Video reached 2.4 million views in a month. Tourism soared. Airbnb listings labeled near Greenbrier ghost grave multiplied. County commissioners finally leaned into spectral branding, launching October Zona Fest with lantern walks, scarf tying contests, apple butter cook-offs renamed Snap Neck Sweetness, tastefully Ray-branded after clergy protest. The festival pumped $1.2 million into local coffers, proving even in death Zona paid taxes. 7. Skeptics Conference and Reluctant Miracle. 2021 National Skeptics Alliance held its annual convention in Lewisburg Civic Center, intent on debunking Appalachian marvels. Keynote speaker Dr. Niles Ortiz presented LiDAR scans of Sowell grounds, no anomalies. He brandished audio analysis of Haunt Road 77 knocks showing human knuckle echo. Mid-speech, power cut, emergency lights flickered. 3 distinct bangs reverberated above hydraulic ceiling panels. Technicians later swore attic doors were padlocked from outside. Ortiz salvaged the evening with humor, seems even ghosts. Respect peer review, but his published paper appended a footnote, incident unexplained. 8. Legacy scholarships and tiny injustices repaid. 2024, a century plus after trial, the Greenbrier Historical Society partnered with WU to create the Zona Shue Scholarship for Forensic Nursing, acknowledging that a woman's observation of bruises once outperformed a coroner's inspection. First recipient jogged along, delivered acceptance speech. Zona taught that when women speak, bodies listen even if some men won't. AP Wire picked it up. Trolls mocked ghost feminism. Jada ignored them, spending stipend on research into strangulation lethality. 9. Returning to Sewell Mountain Lantern for Toon January 23, 2025, the 128th anniversary of Zona's death. Descendants of both Heaster and Shue lines met atop Sewell Mountain under a sky thick with stars. They carried LED lanterns shaped like scarves and read from trial transcripts. Surprisingly, Shue relatives apologized for great-grandfather's violence. Heaster kin forgave. Together they planted a dogwood sapling where the cabin once stood. As soil-covered roots, neutral witnesses gasped. A soft wind curled through branches, though still night reigned in valley below. Leaves rustled 3 times, subtle percussion only peace can play. 10. Voice over reflection. A ghost's job is not merely to scare. Sometimes it crowds courtroom benches, sways legislatures, boosts economies, funds scholarships, and tugs strangers toward reconciliation. Echoes in Greenbrier have outlived every participant. They wire themselves into new speakers, AM tubes, VHS hiss, HTML code reminding each listener that justice born of violence must be retold until the retelling itself becomes preventative. Medicine. Somewhere tonight, a podcast host in Sao Paulo, Mumbai, or Perth reads this script into a condenser mic. Somewhere else, a night shift nurse hits play during a commute across snow-dusted farmland. They will hear the same 3 knocks, maybe. Literal, maybe metaphor. Whether they treat it as omen or audio glitch is their verdict, but the echo will linger, awaiting the next set of ears. Chapter 7. Shue in Chains. History recorded Erasmus Strout Shue's conviction in a single line of legal code, then filed him away like a misshapen nail at the bottom of a blacksmith's drawer. But prisons have long memories, and stone corridors absorb stories the way limestone absorbs seep water. Step through the iron gates of West Virginia State Penitentiary in the year 1899, you walk into a crucible where rumor hardens into legend, where a man can be both inmate number 1912 and the star of a morbid sideshow no barred window can keep. Out 1. The anatomy of a cell 217 measured 7 feet by 5, but Shue's past made it claustrophobic before the door even clanged shut. On his first full day, Warden Henry Moore issued the standard kit: striped wool uniform, tin drinking cup, flea-chewed mattress, Bible. Shue asked for a small forge to keep his skills sharp. Moore laughed. A blacksmith with an anvil is an invitation to jailbreak. South Hall buzzed 20 hours a day. Sledgehammers rose and fell in the stone quarry. Hacksaws shrieked in carpentry shops. Yet one sound quickly distinguished itself: a nightly tap, tap, tap. 3 deliberate knocks on Shue's bars exactly at 12:03 a.m. Guards made rounds, found no prankster. Prison electricians inspected steam pipes for expansion noise, nothing. After a week, prisoners assigned Shue a new nickname, Knockneck. Some joked that his dead wife requested roll call. Others muttered Appalachian hexes they'd half forgotten. Shue tried to outlaugh the fear. He told bunk row neighbors Jonah Hurley and Moses Tanner that he'd sue the warden for phantom harassment, but the veneer cracked every time the lights dimmed for the 10 o'clock count. He'd pace, mumbling 2 unseen corners. Zona, hush now, you got your justice. 2. Night court of the damned penitentiaries run on routine. Dawn chow, labor, noon chow, more labor, dusk yard, lockdown. Routine stupefies the mind, yet one disruption can bloom into ritual. Within 6 months the entire south wing seemed keyed. 2 Shue's midnight knocks. Conversations paused about 5 minutes, still 12. Men stared at ceilings, daring each other not to flinch. When the 3 hollow claps echoed down steel rails, some inmates crossed themselves. Others whispered. Evanen, Zona. Guard logs reveal at least 12 officers heard the knocks between 1898 and 1901. 1. John Red Atkins signed a sworn statement. Noise originates near cell 217, resonates down both tiers, never from mechanical apparatus. Mr. Shue often seen weeping thereafter. Atkins transferred to the women's prison in 1902, saying he'd rather patrol living sorrow than dead revenge. 3. The letters nobody read. Shue wrote letters, hundreds, petitioning governors, bishops, even a mesmerist. Advertised in the back of Harper's as Sage of Souls. He begged for character witnesses, insisted Mary Jane's testimony was devil-wrought, for details he hoped might garner sympathy. I loved Zona so fierce it broke me too. No one answered. Prison mail censors stacked the letters in a burlap pouch, forwarded every 10th one to Charleston, per regulation. Officials skimmed, stamped, received, shelved them in a vault that later flooded, turning Shue's pleas into papirum. Sludge. 4. The blacksmith without an anvildenid. Forge work. Shue was placed on the peg line, where convicts whittled hardwood dowels for furniture factories. The labor was designed to be safe, mind-numbing, and humiliating. Nothing a murder weapon could hide inside. Shue's hands cramped after hours of carving. Rob Lister's reopened nightly. He swore splinters spelled letters, Zona fellow inmates. Rolled eyes, but the older ones, believers in mountain signs, declined to trade shifts with him. One stormy day, a finger-length dowel snapped jaggedly, point stabbing Shue's left palm. Blood splattered the peg bench in a curved arc, startlingly like a scarf knot. Shue fainted. Prison nurse Della Birch noted tachycardia, pale skin, murmured prayers for forgiveness. She chalked it up to blood loss, yet her diary discovered decades. Later records, Mr. Shue screamed her name before passing out. It was not filthy. It was reverent, like begging church bells to ring. 5. The Red Eye Rumble of Moundsville Butte, 1900 and 1902. The penitentiary recorded 6 on-site deaths. 3 from tuberculosis, 1 quarry cave-in, 1 stabbing, and 1 aneurysm. Each occurred in a cell adjacent to or directly above 217. Gossip blamed stress, but certain convicts swore they'd heard those men mock the ghost story. They'd laughed at broken neck jokes, they claimed, and the next dawn guards found them. Stiff, eyes frozen open as if viewing something horrible on the ceiling, officially coincidence. Unofficially payback, Shue became a pariah. Inmates crossed themselves when he passed in mess line. Some spat. He tried to maintain dignity, shaved. With broken mirror sliver, slicked hair but weight carved hollows beneath cheekbones. A sallow glow ringed his eyes, and his cough echoed hollow. TB tests came back positive. Warden reassigned him to lighter work, laundry furnace stoker. Irony abounded, steam heat for a man haunted by cold knocks. 6. The Scarf returns, winter 1901. Shaped up brutal, mercury plummeted below zero, Ohio River ice-clogged coal barges. On January 23, the date of Zona's death, laundry guard Luther Tweed found a strip of white silk in furnace ash, unburnt, embroidered with crimson roses. Prison uniforms contained no silk. Tweed recognized the print from newspaper sketches. Of Zona's infamous scarf, he pocketed the scrap, intending to frame it, but later that shift slipped into the furnace pit, breaking his right leg. Superstition bloomed. Items tied to the ghost-carried curse. Tweed, bedridden, mailed the scrap to Mary Jane Heaster anonymously. She burned it in her stove, reciting the Lord's Prayer all the while. The flame turned green. 7. Shue's last knock, mark 27, 1902. Midnight count passes. 12:03 arrives. 3 knocks ring, louder than any before, so loud Moundsville night warden Jonah Nance scribbles like hammer on sheet metal. Guards hurry. Shue's scream rattles masonry. They find him on the floor, hands clutching neck, eyes blood vessel burst red. No rope, no cellmate. Doctor attributes death to heart failure exacerbated by pulmonary tuberculosis. Inmate rumor files add an invisible footnote. Ghost came to collect interest. Prison officials buried Shue in the pauper cemetery with no ceremony. Workers lowered coffin into clay. One said the pine box jerked mid-descent as though weight shifted or something inside found peace. Warden Moore refused to let chaplain read scripture. Whatever sermon he needed was preached already in that courtroom. 8. Afterlife of a convict's conviction. With Shue dead, legal appeals ceased, but the legend metastasized. New inmates insisted. The midnight knocks persisted, though fainter, like an echo seeking a new address. Wardens scheduled maintenance at 12:03 nightly to mask any sound. Still, the noise was reported as late as 1926, when convicted moonshiner DeCrawley complained walls trembled like church bells. Raleigh sent a letter to the Pittsburgh press, claiming Moundsville was built atop a fault in the veil between worlds. The article ignited new wave of prison tour petitions from curiosity seekers. 9. The cell becomes exhibit in 1939. Prison population overflow forced administrators to decommission South Hall Tier C cell 217 was padlocked and labeled off limits. Rumor claimed locksmiths could not keep the padlock tight. The hasp popped open exactly 3 taps past midnight. Finally, welders sealed bars. Weld lines remain visible today in the prison-turned-museum tour. Guides shine flashlights over the scars and say, "Here lies the cell of the man a ghost convicted." Tourists lean close. Some say they feel breath colder than air-conditioned drafts tickle their cheeks. Audio recorders occasionally catch faint wood on metal taps, always three. The museum sells postcards, wrought iron bars, silk scarves superimposed. Underneath, Gothic script, the only cell guarded by a bride, 10. Voice over reflection. Erasmus Shue died behind 3 locks but could not bolt the door on his crime. Zona's midnight knocks turned penitentiary routine into a metaphysical witness. Stand ensuring the story never slept even when its villain did. Locking a body is easy. Jailing an echo is impossible, and so the Greenbrier ghosts after trial phase call it the penitentiary period proved the verdict correct. Justice does not end at sentencing. Sometimes it insists on overtime, haunting every stone the guilty touches. Shue in chains became Shue in chains of legend, links forged by nightly taps, bound to history as tightly as the scarf he once knotted. As we near the end of this 8000 character trek, only one duty remains, setting down the lantern, so future travelers can decide whether to pick it up. In Chapter 8, The Final Lantern, we will cross into present-day portals, TikTok, forensic nursing scholarships, and the quiet grave where Mary Jane sleeps at last, and invite viewers to knock back at the unknown. For now, imagine South Hall, lights off, walls damp, and a prisoner praying for mercy that arrived not as forgiveness but as footsteps no guard could track. Hear the taps. That's the sound of unfinished business, echoing through iron, bone, and time. Chapter 8, The Final Lantern. When the last witness leaves and the courthouse lights swing out, a story tests its own pulse. Some tales peter out in silence. Others keep marching, lantern in hand, searching fresh faces to illuminate the Greenbrier. Ghost has marched 128 years through gas lamp streets, crystal-set radios, cathode tubes, mold screens, never letting its flame expire. Tonight we follow that lantern across the threshold of now to ask what justice, belief, and bone have to say in the LED glow of the 21st century. 1. Digital. Pixels for Plaints, March 2022. A VR developer from Seattle uploads Zona. VR, a photorealistic recreation of the Heaster cabin rendered in Unreal Engine. Players explore the snowy parlor, uncover clues, even trigger a spectral Zona who whispers, "He broke me at the third." Within weeks, streamers rack up millions of views, shrieking as the ghost pursues them down polygonal stairs. A debate ignites. On Reddit, is gamifying murder disrespect or preservation? One commenter, username at Blacksmith1878, claims to be Shue's distant cousin. "My kin ain't DLC." Another fires back. "If a game keeps people reading trial transcripts, it's public history." Somewhere, Mary Jane's distant descendant likes both comments. Conflict keeps the algorithm generous. 2. DNA versus the Deadchants has dethroned phantoms before, yet here tech becomes accomplice. In 2023, the Heaster Shue Descendant Project partners with 23andMe to run mitochondrial haplotypes across Zona's maternal line. The goal, trace health markers for sudden cardiac failure, the very cause Dr. Knapp listed before the exhumation. Results show no genetic propensity. Press release headline, "Genes clear the ghost again." Twitter explodes. Skeptics shout confirmation. Bias. Believers crow, even DNA bows to Zona. A podcaster summarizes, "Genetics just told us Mary Jane was right." Again, that episode climbs Spotify's true crime chart, pushing last month's UFO tale aside. 3. A legislature revisits the Spectre. 2024. West Virginia House Delegate Tanya Shah introduces House Bill 1487, the Heaster Resolution, calling for formal recognition that women's testimonies, no matter how obtained, sparked legal review long before modern forensics. The resolution passes 62-38 after midnight debate in which one lawmaker jokes, "Let's not start seat saving for poltergeists, the joke bombs." The measure passes. Zona gets her name read into state record again, this time as pioneer, not plot device. For economy of apparitions, Greenbrier annual Zona Fest now draws 5,000 visitors. Pop-up vendors sell everlasting faint fudge, broken neck burgers, silk print scarves scented with lilac oil. Some grumble about capitalizing on violence. Others cite the scholarship fund. Zona-powered tourism now finances 10 forensic nursing students per year. A local preacher, Rev. Harlan Booth, preaches on Matthew 10:26, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed." He adds, "Even if it takes a ghost tour to do it." The congregation nods. Morality bills get paid by the souvenir nickels in the offering plate. 5. Forgiveness under LED stars. In the ridge where Shue's cabin once stood, the dogwood sapling planted by descendants in 2025 now stretches 8 feet high, branches splaying like open arms. Each August, family lines gather beneath fairy light strings powered by solar panels. They read both surnames aloud, Heaster, Shue, letting mountain air braid them into a single rope. After decades of rancor, the handshake holds. They hang tiny battery lanterns, 3 knocks equals 3 flickers, and watch the LEDs wink through. Night like quiet absolution. 6. The cell that wouldn't stay. Moundsville Penitentiary, decommissioned and reinvented as a haunted attraction. Sells premium lock-in tours. Guests spend midnight 2 a.m. in blocks once reserved for lifers. Ever since 2019, sensors in front of welded cell 217 record a temperature dip of exactly 3 F every 12:03 a.m. regardless of season. Paranormal teams lug thermal cameras, EMF detectors, binaural mix. None capture a body, but all record 3 hollow metallic clacks. Management embraces the data. Merch shelf now stocks 217 F hot saw schools to 214 F at 12:03. 7. Academic aftershocks 2026. Georgetown Law publishes echo evidence when intuition leads forensics. Chapter 2 dissects Zona's case alongside NIP's 2004 Dream Clue homicide and the 1980 Atlanta child murders tip gleaned from Psychic. The journal argues non-forensic stimuli can trigger new investigative pathways. Subsequent admissible evidence, not the stimulus, secures conviction. A footnote predicts jurisprudence may soon coin Heaster tests for evaluating such triggers. Irony, a ghost now informs Supreme Court moot court hypotheticals. 8. The Lantern Ceremony, January 23, 2027 oath anniversary. The crowd at Sowell Chapel Cemetery surpasses county population. Drone cameras hover, live casting to TikTok and Twitch. At PM, organizers dim all electric lights. Silence blankets the hillside. Snowflakes drift luminous in drone spotlights. Then a conch shell horn sounds and hundreds of LED lanterns ignite. Cobalt for truth, smoky quartz gray for mystery. A forensic nursing scholar reads Mary Jane's deposition. Each time she quotes, "He broke me at the third," 3 lanterns extinguish, then reignite, echoing the eternal knock. No wires, no remote triggers confirmed, though skeptics suspect RFID surprises. Either way, 1.2 million live viewers flood the chat with lantern emojis, the virtual standing ovation of 21st century grief. 9. Voice over reflection. What remains? A murdered bride, a broken neck, a mother's refusal to hush. These facts survive, welded stronger every retelling. Everything else, scarf color, apparition glow, whether cell 217 still knocks, belongs to the living to accept or doubt. Yet even doubters buy tickets, read articles, press play. In the economy of memory, Zona remains legal tender. Consider this. Her voice, however delivered, corrected a coroner, launched a precedent, raised surfaces every time a victim's intuition nudges a case file off a detective's shelf. We like to say the dead can't speak for themselves. Greenbrier counters. Maybe they can if the living lend an ear. So the final lantern circles back to you, listener, watcher, would-be juror. Will you crack open dusty mysteries when intuition taps 3 times? Or will you shake your head, call it wind, and let some future ghost try again? You've walked 80 plus characters through snow-packed hollers, iron bar corridors, and digital rooms, one lantern step at a time. If the Greenbrier ghost rattled your imagination, subscribe to Crazy Real Horror Stories so the next true nightmare finds you first. Like this video, help the algorithm keep these lanterns lit. Share the story with friends who claim ghosts aren't real. Hand them this verdict and hear the knocks yourself. Comment below. If a voice from beyond cracked your case wide open, would you testify or fear the laughter? Hit the bell, lock your doors, and remember, when justice is ignored, she sometimes returns wearing a scarf. The living can't untie. End of tale. Lantern passed to you.